Who is behind the decisions that affect the future of entire generations? How can we engage in dialogues with them? Do we need to listen to them for them to listen to us? Being young and trying to understand the corporate world can be tricky. But remember, the youth of today will become the CEOs of tomorrow. We aim to initiate conversations with decision makers amidst the ecological and climate crisis to build bridges towards future challenges. Join us on this journey as we unravel the complexities of the climate puzzle in order to find the missing pieces and build the sustainable future for generations to come. Welcome to the Climate Puzzle.
Welcome to the Climate Puzzle, the podcast where we unravel the complexities of our changing climate and explore the role of influential leaders in shaping a sustainable present and future. Today we have the honor of hosting a key player from the multinational plastic recycling sector, the Executive Vice President of Research and Development at Far Eastern New Century Corporation, Fanny Liao from Taiwan. So Fanny, first of all, thank you for being with us today, and how are you?
Thank you for your invitation. I'm fine, thank you. It's my pleasure to have this interview. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For those who do not know, I had the pleasure of meeting her earlier this year during a congress focused on blue economy. It was a workshop held in Taiwan. So life brought us here to have a conversation about climate change, which I find amazing. I'm Federico. I'm part of the Youth Climate Movement. And before we dive into the climate and industry-related questions, I would love to start with a personal question for you. If I would give you a ticket right now for free, a plane ticket, to travel anywhere around the world, where would you go and why?
I never thought about this question, but it would be interesting going to Southport. I heard the Southport is amazing with a lot of wild animals like penguins, whales. That would be interesting to see.
Yeah, definitely. But well, now going straight into what convokes us today, how would you briefly explain to a stranger what is Far Eastern New Century and what does the research and development area do?
Okay. Far Eastern New Century is a publicly listed company in Taiwan Stock Exchange. The company founded in 1949. At the beginning, it was named Far Eastern Textile, which it started from the cotton yarn spinning as the very first business in the group. Now, Far Eastern New Century is the parent company of Far Eastern Group as a conglomerate in Taiwan. We cover 10 business sectors, and 8 of them are publicly listed company in Taiwan. So if you are interested, you can check our website. You just type in Far Eastern Group, and you will know the whole company. Currently, we operate in Taiwan, process half of the capacity of recycled PET factory, the capacity. Also in Japan, we have 2 factories in Japan. Also, probably counts of half of the capacity of recycling PET capacity in Japan. And then we had operation in Ohio, US for PET operation recycling. And then most newly opened the recycling plant in Philippines.
So Fanny, before I have a lot of questions towards what you just said, but I have something first that I would like to ask you. That is, as a representative of FENC, Far Eastern New Century Corporation, and me as a part of the environmental youth movement, I must ask, what is your view on climate change? What is the company's view, and if they are both aligned?
80 to 90% of our research direction is about sustainability, recycle, reduce, reuse, and reduce the toxic material, and very small amount of efforts in improving our existing production facility. So mainly I think for one word, sustainability is the main target for research direction. And also we have more than 150 research staffs supported by the company. to do all kinds of this sustainable researches and the new products. So I think the company aligned with this goal, and this research center have been set up for 23 years. Without long-term support and the commitment, it's impossible you can develop a good product, sustainable product for the new market and the new use and for better future. So I think that's totally aligned with company support, so we can have a long-term goal. So a lot of project actually work out more than 10 years. So finally, we can put a good product, a sustainable product in the market.
It's actually very interesting. And talking about the company, to people that might be listening, in summary, we could say that Far Eastern New Century gives use to abandoned, for example, and binned plastics by recycling them and converting them mainly into textiles, right? Yeah, please correct me if I'm wrong. And bottles?
Okay. 35 years ago, we recycled bottles to make a textile. It was right. Now we actually moved to call bottle-to-bottle recycling, and you can recycle the bottle to finally as a food grade quality. So we get US FDA, European EFSA approval for food contact again. So now it's after 35 years, it's level up to a better technology. So we don't downcycling. When you use one material, you do recycling, but the end up the application become lower value. Then we call downcycling. You recycle it, but it going down to lower value. But we try to do upcycling. You can bring the raw material after recycled be the same quality or even better applications. So we try to do. So now it's very good that we can do bottle-to-bottle recycling, and we are probably the number 2 capacity for bottle-to-bottle recycling in the world.
That's quite interesting, actually. And now that you mentioned that you are like probably the number 2 company in that area in the world, I must ask that for a company of this size and also with a lot of years of history and experience, you must be producing like a lot of how do you say, like products that are supplied to other companies. And I guess these companies to whom you supply might be like known companies. Can I ask like which are your main like customers, like the ones that you supply?
Okay. For bottle-to-bottle recycling, we do supply like a Coca-Cola. They launched the 100% recycled content bottles for their water Dasani in United States. Like a Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Danone, they are all our customers using bottle-to-bottle recycling material in their packaging. And for the fabric, we're still doing bottle-to-fabric recycling. And then like all the name brands like Lululemon, Adidas, Nike, all these name brand are our young customer or fabric customer. They buy the recycled yarns or fabric from us, and they make the final garments in their store. So you can probably think about most of the brands now commit a lot to use more and more recycling content in their products, no matter they are packaging use or textile use. So, like for example, last year, the World Cup, football World Cup, Argentina team wear the fabric we made. This year, the Women World Cup, the champion Spanish team also wear the fabric made by Far Eastern New Century. So we are very proud to support these teams. And then not only because it's recycled fabric, we also gave the garments a lot of functions. So the players can perform well because they're easy to release their heat and so on. So all the functions help them to perform better in the football field. we are very proud. These two
So
teams won the
probably
champion these 2 years.
when Messi was playing the final against France, he was using a plastic recycled jersey that was like the original product, like the fabric made of recycled plastic was made in Taiwan, and he was wearing in Qatar in the final game. That's quite impressive, I must say. I even have the jersey of Argentina, so maybe it was the fabric was also made in Taiwan. Uh, I admit that this technology, the developed technology to adapt like the recycled plastic to the demands of a company like Adidas for let's say for high performance sports, for professional players, uh, is quite impressive. But I must ask also in this race against the climate crisis. Now you mentioned, for example, Coca-Cola. Some companies are known to have like a huge impact in the planet, especially like Coca-Cola, which they are, according to the BBC, they produce, I think, 200,000 plastic bottles per minute, which is crazy in the entire world per minute. So if we make the calculations for an entire day, the number might not even fit in the computer. And as a representative of a multinational company that is trying kind of to solve the problem, do you think there are enough efforts being by these other kind of companies to stop this huge rate of pollution, or would you talk about some kind of greenwashing? What do you think?
Oh, yeah. I think all these brands actually had their commitment made, and you can see from their website. A lot of them commit to use certain percentage of recycling content. So people I think all the brands are putting their efforts to reach the goal they committed. Unfortunately, that makes the recycled material supply become tight. So I think that early this year, there's a news in the United States, Nike was sued by the environmental protecting group, say they are fake, claiming they're using the recycled fabric was fake. So I think it because they probably buy those material from some supplier who are not honest enough and cheated the name brand customer. Okay. But I do believe all these brands, they put their commitment and they try very hard to fulfill their commitment. And so we are pushed by the name brand, say, how can I help them to reach their goal? So by reducing, for example, like Coca-Cola, they try to using some returnable glass bottles instead of one single use bottles, and all this kind of efforts. But there's still a lot of technology problem you have to overcome if you want to change one thing to the other. So we are the R&D behind those name brands to help them try to reach their goal. And I think all the brands, or most of our customers are very committed to reduce, reuse, recycle, all this sustainability goal they try to reach. But we have to keep working on the technology to make this goal happen sooner or quicker or easier and cheaper. I think that's the goal for R&D. Even you say, oh, some people doing greenwashing, but I would say some because they may be cheated by supplier like Nike. I believe Nike was cheated because they always want to look at what they pay for. It's the real stuff they got. And then another thing is that short of supply. Because some country has low recycling rate, I don't get enough recycled material. So hopefully, everybody can start to do better recycling the material you have used. That's the thing everybody can help. And you recycle 8 bottles, you can make a good jersey.
I will definitely look what you mentioned about like the sue against Nike in the USA. I didn't know. about that, and kind of that's how I was orientating the question, like up to what point, where can we draw like the line between like, okay, they are doing some greenwashing and when they are doing like true efforts. I also agree that changing from one day to another the production process is not easy. It's almost impossible. Like the world needs time, companies, people, and everything. And I also agree that consumers have a responsibility in this. For example, you mentioned Zara or H&M, that they're like fast fashion companies. Like they can, let's say they change 100% of their catalog to recycled cotton, recycled polyester and everything. But if the demand of the customers is still buying like tons of clothes every day, like they it's never gonna be sustainable. So I agree that there's a challenge on every aspect, not only on companies, also on customers. But now going about like the recycling, you mentioned like about countries not recycling enough. It is actually one of the biggest concerns, or like challenges of countries, also especially of developing countries, to build like a process or develop some kind of way to be able to recycle these plastics, to gather them, to educate people for the need of separating the residues and everything. So I wanted to ask, how many times can you recycle a plastic, let's say a plastic bottle? And also, which is kind of connected to that question, is how does Far Eastern New Century Corporation gather the plastic? How do you get it? From which countries? Is it only from Taiwan? Well, you can start from any of the two questions you choose.
Okay. I think for the recycling bottles, the countries has to do more. The policy, the country had to set the policy. Like in Taiwan, we have very good policies starting 1988. The beverage maker pay for the bottles the recycling fee they have to pay for the bottles they make, and the money goes to help those the recycler to collect the garbage. So in Taiwan, the PET recycling rate is more than 90%, very high. And that we had recycled about 100,000 tons of PET, the beverage bottles, a year in Taiwan. And then Far Eastern New Century probably collected about half of them. What we do is we actually buying from the recyclers for the waste bottles, and we process it. So we recycle half the capacity of Taiwan, and still, of course, still not enough. So we import some, but this is very restricted import regulation in Taiwan. You can only import the bottles when you have the processing factory license, and the factory are video watching by the EPA 24 hours. Once you get the bottles, you cannot ship it out. You have to process to the final clean product. So people don't have to worry about you import the garbage and end up dumping the garbage somewhere. So it's actually very restricted rule. That's why I say the government should do more to encourage recycle and help the industry to do the things better. And then people are willing to collect more and do more, recycle more, make more. That's it. And how many times you can recycle a beverage? Usually it's 5 times. After 5 times, because during the recycling process, you will lose some material. So you gradually usually you lost about 20 to 30% of the bottle waste in the recycling process, because some impurities and some are really hard to clean. You have to sacrifice those materials. So at the end, you get 20 to 30% losses in the process. So after 4 or 5 times recycling, the material is gone. And also after too many times of recycling, the color of the bottle become bad, yellow. So of course the technology can help to make the recycling efficiency better, the color better. This is all relies on the technology improvement. Just as you said, for probably how to know for Nike, as for example, in Far Eastern New Century's recycled fabric, we have a tracer. You can send to SGS they can tell you whether this is a Far Eastern recycled fabric or not. If it's fake, SGS can test it and tell you the result. So we try to develop the technology. The tracer is one of the material we put in the fabric. Doesn't impact the function of the fabric, and from the outlook you could not tell. Only the special chemistry lab can test it. So like SGS, they are international famous testing lab, and they know our formula. So they can tell you, okay, you said, I buy this fabric from Far Eastern New Century, claim as a recycled fabric. Do you know it's true or not? Then SGS can tell you this is true recycle or fake recycle from Far Eastern New Century.
So you modify like to a molecular level I guess the chains of carbon in plastic, and there is like one formula that is unique by Far Eastern Century. Is that correct?
We do that. It's a molecular level tracer, but we do not modify the backbone. Okay, so we have a special technology that our buyer to make sure they buy the recycled fabric. So every company has their different technology, but I would just say that's R&D's responsibility to develop new technology to help people to know better about the recycling and know they can confirm they are buying the recycling material while they pay more. And then there's also a commitment to stop some people will cheat the brand and the consumers. I think that's what R&D is doing for better technology and better proof to the customer and the brands.
You mentioned before, like also like the role of the governments and the countries in policing and how it helped, for example, in Taiwan to reach, you said, I think 90% of PET bottles being recycled, which is actually a huge rate of like, let's say, recovering like a bin product normally in most of the countries, like 90% of recycling of it, it's a lot. But I want to ask also a question that I think I also know the answer for myself, but do you think it's possible to imagine a world without plastic? And to this question, I would like to add like that I know the two aspects of plastic. On the one hand, we could say like cars. If cars didn't have plastic, they would be like way more heavier, and to move such a heavier object, you would need a lot of more fuel, so it would be less sustainable, even less than what they already are. So in that case, plastic might be good. But then I go to the groceries, to a local grocery, and I see a banana wrapped in plastic, and I'm like, why? Why do we use plastic for a banana? You know what I mean? Do you think it's possible to imagine a world?
Because people probably don't understand some plastic. It looks very similar, like the PET packaging. Actually, we are like our R&D developing the packaging. It looks like an ordinary PET, but it's not. It's modified to extend the shelf life of the food. So from the outside look, it looks the same. You don't tell the difference. But why are we doing this? Because we want to using a special packaging as a functional packaging to keep the food have a longer shelf life to prevent the waste. And also it's some kind of sustainability, not to waste the food. And have a longer shelf life, people can still enjoy the freshness without dumping a lot of food. As I read a statistic, I don't know if it's true or not, but it was scary that say in England, from the farm to end of the table, actually the food waste is at 50%. If you plantation of 1 ton of food in the farm, at the end, after you finish a meal, then you dump something to the garbage trash can. 50% are wasted during the entire process. They may be rot or damaged during the shipment and become ugly food. People don't want it, or you leave it too long in the fridge. It get bad and you throw it away. All this. So plastic may be bad. You think something you don't need plastic, but some plastic are good to prevent the waste, to extend the shelf life. From the packaging outlook, you don't see the function. But our R&D actually do a lot of kind of this packaging, hopefully reduce the waste, extend the shelf life. Is also some kind of sustainability. And and then you have to recycle the packaging again. So what we do is when we make from the recycle, we hope it can be recycled again and again. So when you could not prevent to use plastic, but if you can prevent to use plastic, I agree.
Yeah, but my question was like, when it comes to single-use plastics, that maybe in Taiwan that's kind of banned, or Far Eastern New Century has developed a technology to like kind of supply that demand.
Reuse.
But in many countries, like single-use plastic are a huge problem, and many times you see like these bags in use for anything, like for things that are not even needed.
Yeah, reduce is definitely one thing. All right. So we try to reduce the weight of the plastic bottle we make so we can use less material to help the earth. But I would say if you don't want to you don't have to use the plastic. It's good. Like myself, I bring my own cup to buy the iced tea. I bring my own shopping bags. Okay. I even bring my own container if I take out food, but if I can reduce use, I will try. But sometimes I couldn't, then I will say, okay, I have to use plastic, but then I have to, I want to recycle it. That's why it's 3R: reduce, reuse, recycle.
Yes.
And
I think that's why also, like, as we said before, the responsibility and the challenges are on every side, on the government sector and policing, on the companies and the private sector, and on the customers and the consumers. Definitely.
Yeah. Everybody.
I would like to ask a question that might be a little bit controversial, if you're okay with it. I would like to know, what is your opinion about sustainable businesses that are successful, that grow, that become super modern, developed, and everything? We could say that Far Eastern New Century is an example of like a successful and sustainable business that grew and is like now huge. But my question is like, at some point, this level of success is kind of starts like racing against also the sustainability that originated like the business in the beginning, by, I don't know, international shipping, I know, electricity demands, chain of production, etc. So what is your personal view, in your own opinion, about this controversy that face? And I'm not speaking about Far Eastern New Century in particular, I'm speaking about like many businesses, small and medium enterprises, for example, in my country or many countries, that they start trying to help the world, and at some point they grow and they say like, oh, suddenly now I'm having a bigger impact. Like, what is your view on that?
Yeah, I would say a lot of business started just, I want to do the business. Even 10 years ago, I think sustainability is not an issue at all. Okay. People doesn't aware and doesn't know how to do. I would say, probably start with small, medium-sized enterprise. They just say, I don't have the capability. I don't know how, and I just do my business. But I think, that's why we need R&D to develop the new stuff and tell people, let people know how to do, how to work more sustainable ways. All right. So that's why every talk I gave, I always tell people, everybody can do it. Recycle 8 bottles. You make a jersey. You save some oil. All right. You reduce the carbon footprint. And then I would say, maybe from the beginning, people don't know, but I would say I think education, the new generation is important. The company efforts, for the big company like us, we have 74 years history, but we done recycle more than 35 years. But 10 years ago, probably no one knows. But I would say once, we start to push this to, the enterprise owner, to let them know, because I have to thank to my boss. He was pretty supported all these things. Even he didn't know what I'm doing at that time, but he said, oh, okay, sounds a good thing. but he doesn't know how, but he's supported. I think that's the beginning of all the enterprise owner. You may not know, but you can learn from some other people how they do it, and then think about the way to do it. Maybe maybe it's not available, but at least you think about it and you try to find a solution. For example, 10 years ago, I say I recycle the waste for garments. Really, no one believed it, and no one think it's possible. But at least I try. My company support me to try, right? So I think this is
I definitely agree in that, and I know that the change that we need is not like plastic focused. It's focused like we have so many areas to like make the transformation. So that's the complexity of the situation. That's why it's so complex. I also believe that the environmental awareness. You said it some minutes ago. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, the majority of the population were not even aware, did not even care so much about the environment. Some people did, but not, I wouldn't say it's like not even close as now. We still need to raise more awareness, to raise education in environmental issues. And the bad thing is now we are like actually in a real race against time, because by the time now that people, the awareness is growing, it's like now when we're in the last years to make the changes we need. But talking about past times, I would like to go a little bit back in time now. And I would love to know, how did Far Eastern New Century Corporation start? What were the first steps as a company? What were the challenges you faced?
the first step was from cotton yarn spinning. It's our first business in the entire company, entire group. So it was 1949. Our founder moved the spinning machine, weaving machine, from China to Taiwan because of the communists took over China, and they moved over here and started business 1949 in Taiwan. So at that time, it's very pure cotton spinning. So it's natural fiber production only. But then the man-made fiber invented. So the founder realized it's a good future in the man-made fiber. So we move on to the polyester production and so on. So that's yarn spinning, cotton fabric. It's the very beginning of the business.
Have you or do you work with environmental NGOs and organizations? Is there any mutual collaboration?
Yes. We work with an NGO named Parley, which is also working with Adidas for the ocean plastic recycling. So if you check Adidas website, you type in Parley ocean shoes, you will find. And around the world, they sold more than 1,000 pair of shoes made by recycled ocean plastic. And every pair of those ocean shoes, the yarns of the shoe upper is all made from Far Eastern New Century. So we work with Parley. At the very beginning, when they shipped the ocean plastic to us, the first container was horrible with a lot of garbage. So we started to work with them to tell them what is recyclable, what is not, what is worth to collect, what is not, how to do a better recycling, and start to gradually move up to very good recycling content they supply. And then we can make a good shoes for Adidas. So that's our experience. I also sit on the board of Textile Exchange, which is a non-profit organization in U.S. They are pushing, the goal is to make the textile industry more sustainable. So they cover all different kinds of textile material, and they publish annual report to show the industry how we can move better to the sustainable textile industry. So I was sitting on the board for 3 years to discuss all kinds of possibility, how to educate. We have an annual meeting, we have regional meetings, we have gathered all the most of the famous textile brands, then how to set up a sustainable goal. And then we supply all the reports to educate the textile industry, what's the technology and available things you can do for sustainable textile. and then also introduce the sustainable manufacture to the brands and so on. So we do have work with different NGOs and hopefully get everybody's effort to pushing this idea to more brands and consumers.
And in this dynamic of working pair to pair, and in your experience with NGOs, I would like to know what was like the inputs. What's the input an NGO can give to you as a company, and what input can you give to the NGO as a company? You know what I mean? For example, in the case of Far Eastern New Century, you might both be working for a sustainable goal and objective, but the difference is like one is more focused probably on profits, the other one on the goal itself. Even we can say in a many times with volunteers and everything. So if the path is the same, but then if the goal is the same, but then each one has a different path, I guess that the views about the problem and how to approach it might be different. What have you learned from one another?
Okay. When I was the board director of Textile Exchange, I was volunteer with no pay. This is volunteer work. This is a volunteer work. It actually was an invitation from Textile Exchange, and all the board directors are volunteer without any pay. Okay, every meetings we went, we have to pay ourselves. All right, it's a volunteer work, but I think it's good that I can donate my time and my knowledge to the Textile Exchange and share with all the members, and then pushing the textile industry knows what's the better textile, what's the sustainable textile, what technology you have, what kind of solution we can provide, and what kind of things you can adapt to help your business more sustainable. So on. So this is what the business can be volunteer to this kind of NGO to help them to know what's the path what's the method you can have to resolve all the problems you have. The other way I learned from Textile Exchange is that it's good that we need an education platform people can trust, because when you say, okay, I have a good sustainable technology, people from the company side, they think you just want to sell the product. It may not be true, but from the Textile Exchange, they can consolidate and all different pros and cons. They actually list in their annual report what's the pros and cons of different materials. So you can choose what when you want to do the textile thing, what kind of material you can choose. It's better choice for you. But of course, some material has disadvantages. So they can give you a very mutual suggestion and views. I think it's a good thing we learn from NGOs that they can consolidate all different companies. We have many board directors from different countries, from different companies, and we all donated our time, try to help Textile Exchange. They can educate the industry better and impact to the consumers.
Which are, in your opinion, briefly, the main responsibilities? We just talked about like in this case, the mutual collaboration that you have experienced between NGOs and the private sector. I agree that education, NGOs have this characteristic of many times being, how do you say, impartial towards these problems. So education is one of their challenges to help people to achieve the goals and to raise awareness. But which are, in your opinion, the main responsibilities, briefly, and the role of NGOs, of private and big companies, and governments? Each one clearly plays a different role. But in this race against climate change, which would be the roles and responsibilities of each sector, in your opinion, of course?
Okay, for governments, I think they should set the right rules, the good rules. For example, 35 years ago, Taiwan, we started with the EPA. We set up a good recycling rules with the deposit of the bottles, and then collecting the recycle fee from the manufacturer. And EPA set up fund to monitor all the recyclings, make sure the recycle doesn't go to some just landfill or incineration or something. This is government role. Make a good policy, make a right rules, and set up the boundaries for people to follow. And then for the companies, I think it's good that we actually we know what's more advanced things in the industry. We want to do, for example, research development, develop new technology, develop new things that help the environment better. So it takes time and money to develop the good stuff. And that's the company should do for their social responsibility. For NGO, I think they can consolidate the government policy, the company strengths, and then give a very neutral opinions to brands and consumers for their buying behavior and manufacture behaviors. I think it's important.
So in summary, we would say that governments have the responsibility of setting good rules, policies, boundaries, and make everybody comply with them equally. Companies need to move to new tech, to new processes, to research and invest in new development processes and methods to be more sustainable. And NGOs
resolve the problems.
And resolve the problem, exactly, yeah. And NGOs need to keep on giving their kind of neutral opinions towards the people, towards companies, towards governments. And at some point I think NGOs, and I'm not going to generalize and say like every NGO, but I would say that the people that work for NGOs, the volunteers that are really convinced about, like, they have a strong will of helping, they are also like the best supervisors you can have, because they are going to be honest, they can supervise what the rest are doing. I mean, companies, governments, even consumers. And throughout education, all of this makes more sense together, as we said before. So almost lastly, we're almost in the end. I just wanted to make you a tricky question. In a perfect, let's dream for 1 second, or like suddenly plastic disappears. What happens with Far Eastern New Century?
Okay. I would say we actually do a lot of research on not using the oil to make the plastic. Plastic is not evil. We're using the carbon negative material to make plastic. So when you use plastic, it's carbon negative. You are reducing the carbon footprint. So I don't think people should against the plastic. They should consider whether it's a good plastic. It's a sustainable one. All right. For example, we actually produce the world first garments made from the steel mill waste gas. We do carbon capture. We do carbon utilization. We do carbon fixing, and fixing those carbons on your clothes. When you wear the clothes, it's negative carbon. All right. So you don't have to dump your polyester shirt away. You can still wear. You can reduce carbon footprint. You can fix the carbon on your garments and keep wearing it. Then after the end of life, we can keep recycling, and the carbon is still fixing in the product. No matter how it be recycled to, it's always fixed carbon. Don't release it back to the air. Don't cause the global warming, right? So not people don't believe at that time. I said, we can make negative carbon material. People don't believe it. Bio-based material is the other way. Far Eastern New Century, I made the first T-shirt without any drop of petrol oil. The first polyester shirt without any drop of petrol oil. I'm using the plants. The plants are the CO2, so it's carbon fixing. So people can still using plastic, but it has to from the waste source, from the bio source.
It would be it's like plant-based plastic. Am I right?
Yes, it's a plant-based plastic. So you can use the plastic. The plant absorbs CO2. They do the plants do the carbon fixing, and then you use the product. So not all the plastics need to be evil, okay? So you don't have to phase out all the plastic. You just have to change the material of the plastic.
That's interesting. So we could, I'm going to be tricky now, but we could stop exploiting oil and still have plastic through plants. That's
right. You just grow the plants, and then you can use the plants to make the plastic. So you don't have to dig out the oil. You don't have to generate more carbon footprint.
perfect. Well, it's super clear, everything. It has been an amazing conversation, Fanny. Thank you for everybody for joining us. Together we can piece together the puzzle of climate change and build a greener, more resilient world. We look forward to continuing this journey with you in future episodes of the Climate Puzzle. Thank you, Fanny, very much for joining us. I'm Federico. It's been a pleasure, and hope to see you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Was it easy to decode this suit? Our challenge is to build bridges with all the social actors whose decisions have a huge impact and try to create a more sustainable present and future. The only way to save our planet is by working together. Did you solve the puzzle?